I've got an initialized snapshot here. I've turned off the sample engine, and in the grain browser, I'm filtering by carbon, and I've loaded in Carbon Bode. And I want to start taking a look at the grain page. That's kind of the heart and soul of Ashlight. Now, granular synthesis uses an audio sample as a basic sound source, and it divides it into small segments called grains. Now, the duration or the size of each grain can be set to sizes ranging from 10 milliseconds all the way up to 1,000 milliseconds. Now, if all grains are played back in their normal order, the result is kind of close to what the original audio sample contains, but the power of granular synthesis is in the flexibility to change the playback order and the speed of the grains, and we can apply processing to each grain, put fades in, level and pitch processing, and so on. So you can get really dramatic reconstructing of the audio sample that's underlying. So like you've seen on the sample page, we can turn the engine on or off there. We get into the browser and we have our filters, and we can step through the different presets using that. And we have the randomize button here. And when we do include the source sample to be randomized, it respects, like in the sample engine, it respects whatever filters we have in place. So if I randomize the source, it'll be amongst this subset of presets that it's going to choose from. And then we have the modulator here for the volume and the meters. Now I want to focus on the grain controls in this video, and these are related to the basic generation of the individual grains and their shape. So here's what this sounds like. And it's got some default jitter and modulation and so on. And I'm going to start by just setting the range to a little bit of a smaller portion of it, and I can do it with this over here where I can drag these handles. So first we have voices, which sets the maximum number of voices the grain layer can play. Let's put it down to 1 just to get kind of clinical. Now we have the interval, and this adjusts the time between the generation of the individual grains. So we can sync it to tempo here, and let me just dial it up. Let me bring the fade in and out all the way down again just to get clinical. So we can hear them, in this case, 16th notes. So higher values can be used for more consistent, slowly evolving sounds. Especially if we had fade-ins and fades to kind of smooth those transitions. But I'll leave it down. And then we can use low values to create more lively, erratic results that change at a quicker rate. But we haven't changed the order yet, so it's just playing back in its natural order. Now we have size that adjusts the duration of each individual grain until it's faded out. And the higher the value we use, the more we'll get the natural character of the sound. And low values will be a little bit more abstract. Really jumping around because each one is more staccato. And we have optional key tracking, which is interesting. When it's on, the grain duration is compensated according to the pitch of the MIDI note. So high pitches will be shorter and lower pitches will be longer. Versus higher pitches. And if I hit that same note with key tracking off, they're longer. So it compensates. Now we have fade in and fade out that, again, can be used to make the sound smoother at higher values when we're getting these disjunct motions. So those transitions are smoother, even though we hear the 16th note amounts. And then with none of this, we still hear the kind of disjunct switching between the grains. But with this up, it'll be a smoother kind of motion. And with multiple voices, kind of like a unison effect. And of course we have modulators for all of these, so I can modulate this with the XY pad or any of these other modulators. Let's try LFO1. And it's set to the default sine wave here, which is fine for the moment. And since this is at a fairly high value, I'm going to dial in negative modulation. And if I zero that by command clicking, we hear more of the staccato motion. And if I use a positive range, it'll get more staccato. And we can choose a random shape here to get more interesting irregular results. So just a quick review. The interval adjusts the time between each of the individual grains. The size adjusts the duration of each grain. And we can use the range controls to determine which portion of the waveform we're going to be working with. We'll continue with more in the next video.